Primeval has a lot of episodes, 49 in total to be precise, and many of them have fantastic opening sequences, which kickstart the conflict and plot of the story for each of them. Some of these episodes, however, have cold and often very jarring opening sequences, which can throw the viewer off when watching them for the first few times. In this video, I'll be ranking the top 5 coldest openings for any episodes in Primeval. Starting at number 5 is The New World, the first episode of the Canadian spin-off series set after the last series of the original show. It can also only just be counted as a pre-title sequence, as the main titles of the show don't appear until episode 2, Sisuutol. Two base jumpers launch themselves off a building in Vancouver, where unseen danger descends upon them, shown through various blink-and-you'll-miss shots, including footage from the pair's headcams. The creature then reveals itself as a pteranodon, as it attacks one of the people before striking the camera as the logo flashes up on screen. It's certainly a captivating way to start the series, with immediate danger and stakes involving human lives, although if you've seen the original show, it's nothing too out of the ordinary. This episode is on this list simply because it doesn't have anything to do with the continuity of anything that came before, and so has nothing to fall back on with regards to familiarity, locations, characters, music, or even creature designs, as even the pteranodon, a creature that appeared in various episodes of the original show, has a radically different, and inferior in my opinion, design. This is all because New World was filmed in British Columbia, with a completely different team which created it with different effects and companies. It's not the coldest opening ever, but it's different enough to warrant it being worthy of this list, and as the sequence goes overall, I'd rank it a 6 out of 10 in terms of viewing enjoyment. At number 4 is the very first episode of the show, Series 1, Episode 1. Technically, this is the only pre-title sequence in Series 1, as all the subsequent episodes have an intro recapping events which aren't part of the actual episode. It's a cold opening because nothing has come before, seeing as this is the first bit of content for Primeval, and the audience is way into the franchise. We are instantly thrown into it, as we see yet-to-be-named anti-hero Helen Cutter being chased by a large and aggressive predator from the past, through a familiar setting, that being an Asda car park, showing that nowhere is safe, and showing the immense potential for the show, with time-displaced animals being present in everyday life. How can anyone not love this show? The creature, of course, is the fan-favourite Gorgonopsid, which sadly doesn't appear beyond Series 1, outside of stock footage, and its presence within the first episode makes it so enjoyable. Also, credit to the production team for showcasing a prehistoric animal that wasn't just the obvious choice of a dinosaur. This has got to be one of the best opening scenes for any show, with instant engagement with the subject matter by placing a character in direct conflict with a creature from the past. Everything from the shot composition, the excellent music, and the terrifying Gorgonopsid work together to make this very memorable. What a great and haunting cliffhanger that roar at the end of the scene creates. My personal ranking for this scene alone, never mind the whole episode, is a solid 10 out of 10. Coming in at number 3 is Series 3, Episode 6, which is a departure from other pre-title sequences that have come before, in that it takes place in the future, as we cut back to 8 hours before this scene, straight after the titles. The scene itself is shot and composed in a way to make the viewer believe that the characters we know are stuck in the past somehow, with dialogue, costumes and designs from the 1930s. Danny, Connor, Abby and Sarah are all in an old house discussing various things we as an audience have no context for yet, and it's almost like we've missed an episode in between, with the way it goes straight in with no explanation. The added terrorbird attack right at the end of the sequence only adds further confusion as well, as it looks as if Danny's about to become dinner.
Come on, Mr. Terrorbird, here's dinner!
This scene, of course, is explained, however, during the rest of the episode, and it's also reshot when this scene plays again within the right chronology, with alternative takes and line deliveries, and even different colour grading for some of the shots. But for a mid-series episode, it's quite unusual to have a flash forward like this. It's definitely framed in a way to make the audience want to find out what happens next, and what happened before as well, so it's good in that regard, and works well for what it's trying to achieve. I'd rank this scene a 7 out of 10. With number 2 is Series 3, Episode 7, which, like the previous episode in Series 3, has another very cold opening. This time, however, we're not in the future, but instead find ourselves in medieval England, which comes out of nowhere. I love this episode, and the character of Sir William de Mornay, who is seen here about to set out to rid the land of a dragon, which again may not feel very primevally at first, but is soon explained and made to fit within the story. The dragon in question is a stray Dracorex, which has wandered through another anomaly into this time, and is seen as a threat, calling upon a noble quest to slay the beast. A classic tale. The atmosphere of this scene is very well done, making you feel like you should root for the knight, who is only trying to defend the lives of his people who are cowering in the church. And if you didn't know this was an episode of Primeval, you could be forgiven in thinking it was either its own standalone thing, or maybe even a continuation of Dragons of Fantasy Made Real from 2004. The music is also unique, from composer Angus Moncrief, who did the Gothic choirs heard in the episode, which is the only episode he did music for, to my knowledge. The Dracorex itself does also appear, which for first-time viewers can be considered a dinosaur, and therefore connect to the wider continuity of the show, which may make it less of a cold open for the last spot on my list. This sequence I'd give a ranking of 8 out of 10. Finally, as number 1 is Series 5, Episode 3. This is the coldest opening sequence for any episode in the show. Set in London in 1868, we see quite a convincing looking depiction of the city for the budget they had for this series, and considering it's set in Ireland. It's fittingly gloomy and smog-ridden, like something out of Jack the Ripper, which is adjacent to the storyline for this episode with Spring-Heeled Jack. The establishing shots here also feel like they're out of another show altogether. One unlucky worker succumbs to an early death from something unknown, as who we assume to be the killer strides purposefully off towards the camera. This is actually Emily Merchant disguised as Spring-Heeled Jack, and the killing was not done by her, although we don't actually know that it's Emily at this point, though her return had been heavily implied through dialogue from the first 2 episodes of Series 5. She also departed through an anomaly leading to 1867, near the end of Series 4, Episode 7, so viewers who remember that can put 2 and 2 together here and deduce that she is returning.
She is returning.
This is also one of the few pre-title sequences which doesn't show a creature at all, and even despite the past setting and atmosphere, I'm not a massive fan of this episode, or Series 5 as a whole, so I'll give this a ranking of 5 out of 10. Neither Series 2 nor 4 are on this list because neither of them have much in the way of cold openings, and they certainly don't compare to the others I've mentioned. It's still interesting to compare them though, and the vast majority of the pre-title sequences are all enjoyable, and leave the viewer wanting more. Hopefully this video was interesting, and if it's popular enough I may do more rankings of things from Primeval like this in the future. Thanks for listening.